Hey YouTubers, just checking in for my final video on my hysterectomy journey. I am 9 weeks post-op today, and everything is just, I couldn't be doing better. Everything's completely back to normal. I'll just kind of recap everything and just kind of summarize some stuff. I had my surgery on May 31st, 9 weeks ago. I had a robotic total hysterectomy. I had 4 tiny incisions in my abdomen, and they removed my cervix, my ovaries, my uterus, and my fallopian tubes vaginally. So the incisions on my abdomen healed very quickly, and I didn't have any stitches or staples or anything with those. They just kind of put it looked like that new skin stuff that you can put on wounds that you can get, just kind of looked like super glue basically, and it kind of fell out after, I don't know, a week or two. And I spent the night in the hospital and had very minimal pain. The first 2 weeks were the most difficult, and really wasn't in pain, but I would have to say that it was more of just feeling weak and feeling like I'd had something done to my body. It was kind of difficult to move around. I was kind of slow moving around and everything. But after the first 2 weeks, I really felt really pretty good. And even though I wasn't supposed to still be doing anything, I did. I did housework, I did yard work, and I just really listened to my body. And when I felt like, okay, this is something this is too uncomfortable, I shouldn't be doing this, then I wouldn't do it. I started exercising full on at the 4 week point, because that's when I really started feeling basically back to normal. Started lifting some weights. I kept the weight under, I think at that point, I was supposed to still not lift much over 10 pounds. So I didn't go over 15 pounds for the first 6 weeks. And then once I went for my 6 week appointment, then I was cleared of all restrictions. And so I started lifting the weights hardcore. And so I'm completely back to what I was before the surgery. When I went in for my 6 week appointment, she at the time when I had the surgery, and then they called me with the pathology report just a couple of days later. They said that there was just one fibroid benign tumor. But when I went in for my 6 week appointment, she showed me the pictures and was kind of more specific in pointing out things. And apparently I just had them everywhere. And I don't know, my thoughts about that are, I think I mentioned maybe on the first video, maybe I didn't. When all this first started months ago, with the heavy bleeding and everything, and I went in, and she wanted to do a vaginal ultrasound, where they put a probe up your vagina and then kind of just look around at stuff in there, and then they take this little catheter thing and they insert it up into your uterus, and they take a look around in there. And so they did notice the cyst that I had at that point in time, but she said that they were having problems because once they put that catheter up inside your uterus, then they inject like some saline or something into like a balloon to kind of expand the uterus so that they can really see all of the tissue up there and everything. And they were having problems keeping the fluid in that little balloon, because it's like my uterus just kept squeezing it back down and it wouldn't let it expand. But she told me at that point in time, oh, I don't see anything, everything looks fine. Okay, so then I have a hysterectomy and I have uterine fibroids apparently everywhere, and then adenomyosis, and by default, endometriosis. It's like, I guess you couldn't see any of this on the ultrasound? I don't know. It's all water under the bridge at this point anyway, but yeah, I mean, I had just a bunch of junk going on in there, and I'm really glad that I just got it all removed and I'm done with it. Really, the only complication that I have had throughout this entire process is dealing with the estrogen. They put me on oral pills. Well, first of all, right after surgery, they put a patch on me, and that was supposed to last for a week or so. And then after the patch came off, then I started on the pills. And I was taking 1 milligram of estrogen, and it was awful. Just bottom line, it was awful. And so my recommendation would be, if you're ever in a situation where your doctor wants to put you on estrogen, just tread very carefully and just really pay attention to your body. The first thing that happened with me was I developed this horrendous yeast infection that would not go away because the synthetic estrogen is trying to mimic the natural estrogen, and so it tries to keep your vagina and everything down there moist, and it was keeping me too moist. And so, I mean, I had probably the worst yeast infection I've ever had in my life. It was absolutely awful, and I had to just take all these different courses of treatment, and nothing was working. And that in and of itself was the most frustrating part of this whole process. I know I said at the beginning of this, if I could just get through the surgery, that the rest of it would be a piece of cake. I would gladly go do the surgery again rather than have to deal with that horrible yeast infection. It was awful. And then, and I don't know if this is just me because I deal with anxiety and depression, but my anxiety and depression were off the charts. I mean, I was just crying all the time. I was either anxious or depressed. I would just fluctuate between the two, and it was horrible. And that physician's assistant that I went in to see for my 2-week checkup said that there's no connection between your moods and your hormones. It's like, are you kidding me? I mean, at the time, I'm just like, okay, yeah, whatever. But it's like, I don't see how they can even justify that. I mean, they still stick with their belief that the only issues that you should have with taking estrogen or not being on estrogen are hot flashes and night sweats. And anyway, to make a long story short, I just went off the estrogen. I'm like, I can't take this anymore. And I did talk to the doctor about it when I went in for my 6-week checkup, because I was still having like yeast infection symptoms, and which it ended up, it started being a yeast infection. I got treatment for it, but then I continued to have problems with it. And at that point in time, she felt that it was just an overgrowth of the good bacteria. And so she put me on something else, and it was a mess. But she mentioned that the estrogen could possibly be what was causing it. And so at that point in time, she said, let's cut the estrogen in half and see what that does. Actually, that was my suggestion. I said, because the choices were basically quit the estrogen altogether and deal with hot flashes and night sweats, or cut it in half and see what that does. Well, I ended up just stopping it altogether. And wow, I mean, my moods improved almost immediately. No more yeast infection issues or any kind of itching or discomfort with that. It's just been night and day. It's been so much better since I stopped that. So I will never take those poison pills again. You know, yes, I've been having hot flashes, but it's nothing I can't deal with. I mean, it's really no big deal at all. I sleep with a fan on. It usually only bothers me at night. If it happens during the day, you know, I mean, just put a fan on your face. I mean, to me, it's no big deal dealing with these. To have my moods stabilized and normal is much more important to me than feeling hot every now and then. So, yeah, that's my story with that. But to sum up, I'm very glad that I had this done, that I got it all taken care of. I don't have to worry about periods ever again. My iron levels are back to normal, no longer anemic. It's just it's been great. It's really been great, and overall, it was just a very positive process. My only advice is just watch that estrogen, because I think that's kind of a scary thing to be putting synthetic hormones into your body. At least it just wasn't very positive for me. But so that's it. That's my journey. I'm very glad to be done with it and to be back to normal. I'm getting ready to go out to Colorado next week for a backpacking trip, and I'm feeling strong. I'm ready, and life is good.